December 21st, it started to rain again. December 22nd, rain. December 23rd, more rain. We kept hearing cracking and groaning sounds from the Great Wall. The river is swollen from all the downpours and keeps pounding with new strength. December 24th, it has been raining steadily for 4 days. The Great Wall finally gave way today. Timbers and planks went shooting down the river as it roared into triumph. December 25th. The Americans are celebrating their Christmas. Lots of shouting and singing despite the rain. They sound very drunk. Evening. The Fox complimented me on last Sunday. I told him I couldn't take credit for what Hiram did. However, he said you can tell the quality of a person by the company the person's with. I picked well, so my friends are always welcome. And then he paid me the real compliment. I am becoming a true guest, so he can trust me. He flipped his straw sleeping mat and told me to help him dig. I got down on my knees beside him and began to scrape dirt out with him. A few centimeters below the surface was a large jar. The strong box and chamber pot are only big enough to hold a day's worth of gold, so he needed to store his hoard elsewhere. When he opened the lid of the jar, I saw that it was full with little sacks of gold dust and nuggets. There was also all these molds for something long and thin. It took me a moment to realize they were for chopsticks. The Fox hadn't been cold at all when he had been burning all that firewood. He had been changing the gold into ordinary-looking chopsticks. More Fox magic. I got wood from the big pile outside his tent so we could melt the gold down and pour it into the molds. When they had cooled off, we blackened them so they looked like lacquer chopsticks. The Fox ships them out the same wagon that brings in our supplies. He said that a couple of times Americans have searched the wagon. However, he always puts real chopsticks on top. So far, all the boxes have made it to San Francisco. I asked him why the Americans hadn't noticed how heavy fake chopsticks are. The Fox says Chinese wouldn't notice because they use chopsticks all the time. Americans don't really know what they are. Once again, I'm not to tell anyone, not even Uncle, but I can tell you, Diary. I'm proud that he can trust me. I'm a little frightened, too. What if the robbers start beating me? I'm not as tough as Fox. I'd tell them all his secrets after the first blow. I almost wish he didn't have so much faith in me. When we had disguised all the gold, the Fox asked me what I was going to do when his job was finished. I said I thought the city might be safer. The Fox laughed. He explained that the city folk hate us just as much as the miners. I said I thought it was rougher up there than in the city. He admitted that is true for now, but what will happen when every timid soul heads for the city? In no time, there will be 100 men for every job. Isn't it dangerous up here if you use your wits? And he asked me if I had ever watched a deer. I said I had just seen them by my vegetable crops. The Fox told me to keep an eye on them in the next chance I get. He said the deer eat when they can, but they keep an ear and an eye open. That way they can always slip away before trouble comes. That's the secret of a true guest. The Fox did a little hop and skip dance step. He said a true guest has to be nimble of foot to stay on the Golden Mountain. Real guests can go running back to China because China is no place for clever folks like us. In China, we had to do what everyone told us to do. On the Golden Mountain, though, we could become anything we want. Then he took me outside the tent and took a deep breath like it was wine. We looked up at the night sky. It was full of stars. He told me the Golden Mountain casts a spell on a person. You can't shake it off. Maybe that's fine for someone as brave and as smart as Fox, but not for me. I'm still the runt. January 1st, 1853. I can hear the Americans celebrating their New Year's. Now I know what they do. They're shooting off their guns like they did on July 4th and on Admission Day. I wish they wouldn't. It makes me nervous. What if they stop aiming their guns at the sky and start pointing them at us? January 2nd. Snow! When I first saw it, I thought it was feathers. I figured the cook was plucking chickens for our Sunday meal. However, more of it whirled by. It would have taken the whole flock of chickens to make that many feathers. So I looked up. It was coming down from the sky. When one of the white things touched my cheek, I felt cold, and the next moment it was wet. Uncle told me the snowflakes were falling. I tried to catch them on my palms, but the little dots melted as soon as they touched my skin. I was so happy. I swung my arms back and forth. They were spinning every which way. Uncle pretended to scold me. He said, "What kind of Chinese wastes something to eat?" Then he tilts his head back and opens his mouth. He looked like a little bird begging for food. So I copied him. The snowflakes melted on my tongue. So that was what the sky tasted like, cold and sweet. All around me, the other miners had started to lift their faces toward upward and were tasting the snowflakes. The fox grumpily told us to stop making noise, but I'm writing this down so I won't forget. I know Blessing will want to hear about it later. The snow's still falling as I write this during our meal break. It's turned the trees into white balls of cotton and covered the ground. Since it's Sunday, I've been able to sit and enjoy everything. Still later. Sorry for the interruption, but I was just beginning a new thought when something smacked my head. It felt cold and wet and knocked off my hat. Naturally, I bent to pick up my hat. That made my backside a target. I got real mad then. However, as soon as I straightened up, I saw something large and white coming toward me. It kept getting larger until it struck me in the face. When I wiped my eyes, I realized it was snow. A ball of snow whizzed by and struck another miner. Uncle was laughing. He spread his arms out wide and invited me to hit him. I imitated some of the others and bent over and scooped up some snow. My bare fingers felt even more numb, but I flung it. It flew apart barely a meter from my hand. "You have to pack it first, boy," Uncle said. He showed me. By that time, snowballs were flying every which way. It looked like a startled flock of white pigeons were darting here and there. Uncle stood patiently while I got more snow and shaped it into a ball. This time, the snowball held together, but my aim was way off. At this point, I just gave up and did what some of the others were doing. I ran up to Uncle, squatted, and began to fling handfuls of snow on him. The fox came storming out of his tent to lecture us. His hat flew off when he was hit with a dozen snowballs at once. He rocked this way and that each time a snowball hit him. Finally, everyone ran out of snowballs. We all stood watching. The fox wiped off his face. With great dignity, he fetched his hat. Then he calmly walked right up to Uncle and me. I wondered if we were going to be fired. As the fox glared at us, he wept his foot, kicking up a huge spray of snow over Uncle and me. Then snow was flying all over the place. Some grabbed shovels and began throwing snow that way. It was a wonder that the swinging shovels didn't knock out someone. By the time we all paused for breath, I was feeling warm again from all the exertion. Evening. The snow felt the rest of the day. Tonight at dinner, I took a cup of tea outside and sat on a tree stump. I hardly recognized our claim. The snow had softened the outline of everything. The hard lines of the rockers had disappeared under soft white curves. The whole world looked new. When I went back inside, I wrapped rags around my hands to keep them warm. Otherwise, Uncle said that they could get frostbite, and the Americans called it. Then we huddled together in the tent for warmth. January 3rd. The soil in the riverbed has frozen. It blunts the pickaxe when we try to chop it up. The foxes ordered fires to be set on the riverbed to warm up the ground. The water is so cold it makes my fingers ache. Everything is taking so much longer now. January 6th. The snow has already begun to melt. The trees with their loads of melting snow are miniature rain clouds. I can't say I'll be sorry to see the snow go, though. January 7th. It got really cold again, so the melting snow froze. The trees are covered in icicles. There's also ice on the ground. Everyone has fallen down at least once. Things have slowed down so much, the fox is almost tearing out his hair. He wants to begin the new wing dam. January 13th. Cold and miserable. January 14th. More cold, more misery. January 24th. It takes such an effort to do anything. The very air steals the warmth from my lungs. Uncle was right. I've already had my fill of snow. I hate it, but I don't think I'll put that in a letter to Blessing. I'd rather have him stay envious. Ha ha ha.